For centuries, scientific discovery followed the same basic process. A human asked a question. A scientist studied previous research, created a hypothesis, designed an experiment, collected the results, and then decided what to investigate next. But artificial intelligence is beginning to change that process. AI is no longer being used only to summarize research or analyze data. Scientists are now exploring something much more ambitious. What if AI could perform large parts of the scientific discovery process itself? Imagine giving an AI a difficult scientific problem. Instead of simply answering the question, it searches thousands of research papers, compares existing discoveries, identifies gaps in knowledge, generates possible hypotheses, and suggests experiments that could test them. That would make AI more than an assistant. It could become a scientific discovery engine. Modern AI systems can already process enormous amounts of scientific information. They can examine research papers, datasets, equations, images, simulations, and experimental results at a scale that would be impossible for a single human researcher. But reading information is only the beginning. The real challenge is creating something new. Suppose an AI is studying a difficult problem in biology. It could examine thousands of previous experiments and discover relationships that researchers may never have connected. It could then generate multiple possible explanations. Some would be wrong. Others might already be known. But one of them could reveal a genuinely interesting possibility. The next step would be testing it. And this is where things become much more interesting. AI can write computer code and create simulations. That means it can potentially test thousands of possibilities inside a virtual environment. It can change a variable, run the simulation, analyze the result, and try another possibility. Then another. And another. But simulations alone aren't enough. Eventually, predictions have to meet the real world. This is where automated laboratories could become extremely important. Imagine a laboratory where robotic systems prepare samples, operate instruments, collect measurements, and repeat experiments automatically. The AI proposes an experiment. The robot performs it. The instruments generate new data. The AI analyzes those results. And then it proposes the next experiment. That creates a continuous scientific feedback loop. Hypothesis. Experiment. Result. Analysis. New hypothesis. And the cycle begins again. For scientists, this could be incredibly powerful. One of the biggest limitations in research isn't necessarily a lack of ideas. It's time. A human researcher can only read a limited number of papers and perform a limited number of experiments. AI systems can potentially explore far more possibilities in the same amount of time. That could dramatically accelerate certain areas of scientific research. But there is a major problem. What if the AI is wrong? AI can produce answers that sound extremely convincing while being completely incorrect. It can misunderstand evidence. It can make mathematical mistakes. It can generate false references. Or it can find patterns in data that aren't actually meaningful. In science, confidence doesn't prove anything. Evidence does. That's why verification could become one of the most important challenges in autonomous scientific research. An AI shouldn't simply say, "I discovered something." It should be able to explain exactly why it believes the discovery is real. Where did the evidence come from? Which experiment produced the result? Which dataset was used? What calculations were performed? And can another researcher reproduce the result? This is why researchers are developing systems that can create traceable chains of evidence. Instead of receiving a mysterious conclusion from an AI, scientists could potentially follow the entire path from the original evidence to the final claim. That could make autonomous research much more trustworthy. Because the future scientist may not only need an AI that is intelligent. It may need an AI that can prove how it reached its conclusions. Now imagine applying this to medicine. An AI could analyze enormous numbers of molecular structures and predict which ones might interact with a disease target. The most promising candidates could then be tested in real laboratories. In materials science, AI could search through thousands of possible materials and identify combinations with unusual properties. In astronomy, it could analyze enormous amounts of telescope data and identify signals that deserve further investigation. In physics, it could explore mathematical models far beyond what humans have time to examine manually. And in biology, it could study complex interactions between genes, proteins, cells, and tissues. But this doesn't necessarily mean AI will replace scientists. The more realistic future may be collaboration. Humans decide which questions matter. AI explores enormous numbers of possible answers. Robots perform experiments. AI analyzes the results. And humans examine the discoveries. Together, they repeat the process. This could change the speed of scientific research. A project that once required years of searching and testing could potentially be explored much faster. But then another question appears. What happens when AI becomes capable of choosing what to investigate next? Today, humans usually decide which scientific questions deserve attention. But an autonomous system could eventually identify gaps in existing knowledge and decide which ones are worth exploring. It could notice an unexplained result and request another experiment. Then another. And another. At that point, AI wouldn't simply be a tool used by scientists. It would become an active participant in scientific discovery. And that raises difficult questions. How much independence should an AI scientist have? Should it be allowed to design experiments by itself? Should it control laboratory equipment? And who would be responsible if its conclusions were wrong? These questions become increasingly important as AI systems become more capable. But we should also be realistic. We are not yet living in a world where AI independently discovers everything humans don't know. Current systems still have limitations. They depend on data. They make mistakes. Their predictions need validation. And many discoveries still require human expertise and physical experiments. But the direction is changing. The laboratory of the future may look very different from today's laboratory. Instead of only human scientists working at benches, we could see AI systems searching for hypotheses, computers running simulations, robots performing experiments, and humans supervising the entire process. And when all of these systems work together, something extraordinary could happen. Science could begin operating at a scale and speed that humans alone could never achieve. Because scientific progress has always been limited by how quickly we can ask questions, test ideas, and learn from the answers. Artificial intelligence could change that equation. The next great scientific discovery might not begin with a scientist looking through a microscope. It might begin with an AI searching through billions of possibilities. It might find a connection nobody noticed. It might propose an experiment nobody considered. And eventually, the most important scientific question of the future may not be, what can humans discover? It may be,